Denver Broncos Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. And I have this channel because there's a lot of bullshit out there. And if you want to drink Kool-Aid, you love it. And that's your prerogative. You can believe all the fairy tales you want. But, when you find out that the fairy tales aren't true, stop, looking for scapegoats and being all upset when yours truly is trying to give it to you straight. The places you can go to get the straight scoop, you may not be what you want to hear. You may want the fairy tales, but that's what I'm here trying to do, is tell it like it is. And our video has to do with this 11th best offense rearing its ugly head again. Nobody around the country is buying this, and this is why. Is the Broncos in the upper 1/3 offensive line? Probably not. I mean, if they do become the 11th best, they'll give Munchak a miracle award. Here are the reasons why this is not true. Number one, Munchak, this is the only two players that you could consider Munchak's players on this whole offensive line is Dalton Reisner, and Juwan James. Okay? That's as far as it goes. He has to work with, he being Munchak. Munchak has to work with Musgrave and Coach Soundbite's offensive line. This would include one Garrett Bowles. And here's the thing that you may find interesting about my take on this Denver Bronco offensive line. Garrett Bowles could turn out to be the solid player at the end of the season out of all of this, him and maybe Reisner. Because his problems are more technique and mental. And that's something that Coach Munchak could, being the good coach he is, could work out. Now, Reisner, is still, learning the ropes. If he's serviceable at best, that's fine. That's what we're hoping for. Now, you go to Connor McGovern. Now, the guy that's pushing this 11th best offensive line loves Connor McGovern. And why, I do not know. Yes, you have the ball snap issues, but there's a reason you have the ball snap issues, is because the guy gets pushed back into the quarterback. I guess if that's what you want, if you want to claim that that's great, then, then so be it. But it's not great. And this is why the rest of the league riders would laugh at this 11th best offensive line nonsense. Then you got Ron Leary. Ron Leary has been very injury prone. Now, when he's healthy, he's pretty solid, but the problem is he's just not in the arena very much because he's usually injured. And I don't see that changing this year. Maybe you get a healthier year out of him and you get lucky. That's possible too, but the trend is with him is that he typically is injured. Juwan James. The problem with Juwan James is, the Dolphins were not going to pay him the money he wanted, and this is the reason why. Juwan James was also MIA in a lot of assignments last year for the Miami Dolphins. We don't know if he was injured and he missed a lot of action, or he just wasn't good and missed a lot of action. There seems to be a mystery about that, of why he was pulled quite a few times last season, which was one of the reasons why that the Dolphins weren't going to pay him. So the Broncos have to take that under consideration, that he too is either injury prone or there's a reason why he was pulled And I guess we'll find out. Juwan James is going to be a mystery as to what happens with him. Now we have to look at who, if Juwan James is injured, Leary is injured, McGovern, turns out to be, not a good player, but more of a backup. And he's just not good. There's 3 players we have to replace during the year. That's a possibility. For me, if the Denver Broncos are in the middle of their offensive line, that would be a victory for Munchak. I think it's a lot to ask that the Denver... we're talking pass blocking here, mostly. Now, you can throw in the run blocking and say, well, it equalizes out to the 11th best. Well, when teams decided they were going to stop the run and they weren't at all worried about Denver's passing game as soon as Sanders went out, they had no problems. They stopping the run. The blocking was not effective. So I even questioned the Broncos' run block ability because it disintegrated at the end of the year. So if the Broncos, in my opinion, become the 15th, 16th, 17th best offensive line, middle of the pack, I think it would be a major victory for Munchak, who, in my opinion, still needs more offensive players to plug in. I do not believe that Connor McGovern, Leary, or Juwan James are the answer for the future. And I think that's going to become apparent as the year goes by. Now, Sandy Clough, the sports talk radio guy out here at night, was trying to make a point that the Broncos don't spend much on the lower third of spending for offensive linemen. Well, look at the offensive linemen they got. How can they spend, on these guys? But true, they haven't spent the coin to bring in any decent offensive linemen. So you get what you pay for. That is a valid point. I would caution lapping up this Kool-Aid that the Denver Broncos have an upper third of the NFL offensive line. And even if the offensive line is good in the first month of the season, you got a whole season of football to play. A whole season. And there's a lot of longevity issues for this offensive line, and how do the people that step in if these guys aren't playing good? So we'll obviously keep up with this offensive line, and this, but I'm going to dispel this 11th best offensive line nonsense and be more realistic about it. I think Sandy Clough was trying to be realistic about it. Nobody around the nation would ever agree to this article. It's just not, it's not in the realm of the real world. So again, you can drink Kool-Aid all you want. That's fine. But when reality sets in and you realize that you've been lied to, you can keep going back to Kool-Aid, or maybe you should say, well, we'll see what somebody who has a different take has to say. So, the choice is up to you.